over the Bay of Naples is Mount Vesuvius, a volcano that caused one of history's most famous disasters. Nearly 2,000 years ago, the Roman city of Pompeii was destroyed when Vesuvius erupted. The city and 2,000 people disappeared under a wave of volcanic ash and hot poisonous gas. "17 centuries went by before Pompeii was rediscovered, under 20 feet of ash and rock, a city frozen in time. Today, the site is a popular spot for tourists. Among the sights, the world's oldest "Beware of Dogs" sign. How old was Pompeii before?
Over more or less 700 years.
Before it got destroyed. Yes. My guide to this Italian ghost town was Giuseppe Lanciano.
What are these? Okay, you can see here the special tracks of the chariots left here by the wheels here, very deep in some place. The
wheels would come through here and make these marks through the stone, huh?
Through the stones, yes.
There's a lot of, so I see 700 years of
700
chariots
years
that make those marks.
Yeah.
Archaeologists have just uncovered this tragic scene. Victims caught inside their house. Suffocated by gas and ash, they were cast in volcanic rock where they fell.
Here we can see the family, complete family, piece of wood.
That wood
fell
came
down
out of
from
the
roof.
From the roof, huh?
From the roof. And a pregnant woman, 6 months pregnant here, the lady, and husband here.
It looks like he's trying to shield her, huh?
Yeah.
Trying to hold his arm over her. This family was obviously taken completely by surprise, even though they knew they lived next to a volcano. They knew it could go. Huh?
Could go, yeah.
And yet they carried on their daily lives. Yeah. They lived right here at the base of the mountain. Where do you live?
Actually, now in New Pompeii.
Where's that?
It was just there, half a mile far from here. But we are not afraid.
Giuseppe's confidence, and that of other Neapolitans, lies in the belief that there will be plenty of warning before another eruption. 79, when that blew. The person whose responsibility that warning would be is Lucia Civetta, who directs a team that continuously monitors the volcano. She was willing to sit beside the crater, so...
This is the crater of the last eruption of Vesuvius, the 1944 eruption of Vesuvius. This crater was formed during that eruption. Before 1944, you can walk from this side to the other side.
So what happened to all the stuff that was there between here and there? That went up?
Yeah.
That's what I know.
Yeah.
Vesuvius once again strikes terror into the surrounding Italian countryside.
Vesuvius's eruptions have a pattern. The 1944 eruption counts as a small one, happening about once a century. Pompeii-sized eruptions happen every 2,000 years or so. And Pompeii was destroyed just over 1,900 years ago. Which means the stakes get higher every year for Lucia Civetta and her monitoring teams. Every week, researchers climb down into the crater to take the volcano's pulse. These steaming fumaroles are venting from deep within the volcano. The gases provide clues to what's brewing in the chamber of molten magma that sits 3 miles beneath the summit. Today's measurements are reassuring. Both the radon gas levels and temperature are stable.
Sono 54.7.
But while the volcano sleeps, the population on its flanks is exploding. 2 million people now live within a few miles of Vesuvius. And if they believe the science of prediction will save them, they need look only 300 miles to the south. In Sicily, in December 1991, Mount Etna erupted. Scientists monitoring the volcano knew for months that activity was building. But no one predicted what would prove to be the real danger, an eruption a mile below the main crater on the mountain's flank. The new unknown was where this river of molten lava would lead. In an attempt to find out, scientists turned to a new predictive tool, computer simulation. On a three-dimensional computer model of Mount Etna, researchers placed the vent and estimated how much lava was flowing. The model simulated the possible routes the lava could take. The most likely, shown in red, was channeled through a narrow pass right above the town of Zaffarena. If the eruption was a long one, the model predicted the town's total destruction. Taking the prediction seriously, officials hastily built an immense earth dam across the pass, a barrier 60 feet high and a half-mile long. Meanwhile, the lava crept down the mountain, following exactly the course the simulation had predicted. The barrier held back the lava for a month. Then in April 1992, it crested the barrier. But the prediction had bought time for the authorities to plan their next move. In an extraordinary effort, helicopters from the U.S. Navy joined the battle in an attempt to directly plug the lava vent. But even American dumpsters couldn't stop the flow. In Zaffarena, nerves were frayed.
No, vedi non è un esperimento. La commissione grave, io ne sono convinto, ne sono uno di Zaffarena. No!
With the lava now just half a mile from town, residents awaited orders to evacuate and dug last-ditch defenses. But then the computer simulation pointed to a dramatic new strategy. The model suggested that high explosives could divert the flow into an artificial channel dug to the left of its original course. The strategy worked. The lava emptied into an unpopulated valley, and the original lava flow stopped 300 yards from Zaffarena. In Sicily, a computer model had helped save a town. Back on Vesuvius, I met up with Flavio Dobran, who hopes his computer simulation might prevent a modern-day Pompeii. Vesuvius isn't like Etna. A large-scale eruption here would produce not slow-moving lava, but a 200-mile-an-hour avalanche of superheated gas and rock.
200 miles an hour. There's no hope of ever getting out of the way.
200 miles an hour at a temperature of about 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And it gives you an idea, it takes about 5 minutes for these flows to reach from here all the way down to the sea. In 5 minutes. In about 3 minutes, you're already to the autostrada, which passes about 7 kilometers down
And
there.
that's the way out.
No, that's not the way out.
I mean,
That's panic.
When Flavio's results were published, they caused a political uproar. Here was a detailed scientific model predicting a modern-day Pompeii in the making. The only evacuation route, the autostrada, will be wiped out in 3 minutes, trapping 700,000 people. Flavio Dobran believes the only practical strategy is to somehow block the path of the flow before the eruption occurs.
You would like to see barriers built?
Not necessarily barriers. A barrier can be just a part of a condominium.
So you could live in an apartment dash barrier.
That's right. One part of the building can just be a barrier,
Yes.
which you don't see it actually.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you can build. I mean, speaking freely,
Yes.
you can build a set of houses down there. You know,
Yes.
which one part looking towards the volcano is really a barrier.
Do you think that these people would get a little break on the rent? I mean,
Actually, no, because the closer you come here, the more it would cost because you get a more beautiful view.
for a while anyway.
To test this idea, Flavio built 90-foot-high barriers in his computer model. The first is quickly overrun, but the second, 3 miles below the summit, shields the autostrada.
We ran the simulations up to 1,000 seconds, and the barrier was holding the flow.
So not only would many lives have been saved if that held true in reality, but the escape route would also have been preserved.
Well, you would save 700,000 people.
So for those who choose to live with volcanoes, simulated eruptions may help them survive the real thing. On the other hand, there are easier ways.
Can you point out to me where you live down there?
No, I don't live down there.
Where do you live?
Right now, we are doing simulations in Pisa.
Ah, that sounds far enough away.
Yes.
Between Rome and Italy's east coast, the autostrada cuts through the mountainous spine of Italy, the Apennines. The highest peak is called the Gran Sasso.
Most people come to the mountains for the breathtaking views. But for some people, the most breathtaking sights aren't on top of the mountain. They're underneath it. This tunnel runs for about 5 miles underneath the Gran Sasso Mountain. There's supposed to be a turnoff along here somewhere.
What we're looking for turned out to be one of the most amazing and certainly most unexpected of all the places we visited in Italy. A laboratory cut into the heart of the mountain.
Hello, Alan Aldous, Scientific American Frontiers.
It's hard to believe it from here, but beyond these doors, scientists are trying to solve perhaps the biggest puzzle in the universe: where and what most of the universe is.
Does there have to be a mixture?
The lab looks like the set for a science fiction movie. This giant yellow box, 40 feet high and almost a football field long, is actually one of the world's biggest scientific instruments. My guide to the lab is its scientific director, Doug Michael. What he's using the instrument to look for is the 90% of the universe no one can find.
We know that the galaxy needs more matter to clump it together. Okay, there's not enough matter to have enough gravity.
The detector is trying to find what's literally lost in space.
Right?
Is this place that we're in a way, a telescope?
Yeah. It's under a mountain, so it's a telescope under a mountain.
When we look into space with conventional telescopes, the galaxies we see are unimaginably large clusters of stars. But the visible stuff in galaxies is only about 10% of what's needed for gravity to hold them together. Something out there is providing the cosmic glue. But what? One idea about what this invisible missing matter might be suggests that a lot of it is flying through us all the time. The Earth is being constantly bombarded by invisible particles from outer space, cosmic rays. Most of them can't get through a lump of rock as big as the Gran Sasso, but a few do, and they're the ones that are candidates for what's missing in the universe. Down here they can be spotted because they create other particles called muons.
A muon essentially it's a high energy moving at the speed of light particle, and it just comes flying right to the detector, right? I mean, there goes one right now, okay? I mean, they come through every 3 seconds.
Right now. That's amazing. I missed it. That goes so fast.
It just comes right through, right?
Yeah, okay.
Anyways, our electronics is capable of recording that muon when it comes in because we have detector planes that have been built to be
The
sensitive.
detector has been put down here under 4,000 feet of solid limestone, precisely because the rock shields it from most cosmic rays, allowing through only the ones that Doug Michael and his colleagues think are interesting.
It's sort of like if you had if you had a flute playing in a 1,000-piece brass band or something like that, you would never hear the flute.
So in a way, this is creating a quiet room.
And so it's a quiet environment that allows us to be able to see these really rare events.
The rare event he'd most like to see is the track left by what has to be one of the strangest things I'd ever heard of, something called a magnetic monopole.
Any magnet that we've ever built on Earth always has 2 poles to it, a north pole and a south pole, okay? What a magnetic monopole would be is if you could just separate out one of those poles from the other. You can try it with a magnet if you like. You can sit there and chop a magnet up into as many pieces as you like, and you'll never succeed. Okay?
You'll always have a piece that has north on one side and south on the other.
South on the other.
Well, so how could you possibly have a monopole that's only north or south?
First of all, there's no reason that you can't have it. we don't seem to have ever found such a thing.
The reason for looking for magnetic monopoles is that they're prime candidates for being some of that missing matter in the universe. They may be so small as to be invisible except to an underground telescope like this, but they have one thing going for them if you're looking for missing mass.
They're so massive that they could have only been produced in the very earliest moments of the Big Bang, some of the very first particles.
So they're not being produced now in stars or supernovas or anything?
Absolutely, there's no process in the whole universe that could produce a magnetic
Only the
monopole
Big
now.
Bang was
Only the Big Bang
powerful
was
enough.
powerful enough to produce those monopoles.
So, but from that time, from that event, that Big Bang, they're still out there somewhere, here somewhere.
We think they have to be there. The problem is we have no idea of how many of them there have to be. There could be anywhere from millions of them floating around us all the time to one in the whole universe.
So far, in the year the detector's been looking, no monopoles have turned up, which is not surprising if there's only one in the universe. But the search continues, because if enough magnetic monopoles exist, they could be the missing cosmic glue that sticks the whole universe together.
This is the city of the Renaissance, Florence. Here for 200 years, starting in 1400, art and architecture were reborn. And it all began right down there in the heart of the city, in the Piazza del Duomo.
In the late 1300s, Florence was experiencing a building boom. A brand new cathedral was almost finished, and the old baptistry was being renovated. New doors for the baptistry were planned, and a competition to design them was won by a sculptor named Lorenzo Ghiberti. The striking perspective and realism of his bronze panels are often taken to mark the beginning of the Renaissance. The big loser in the door contest was Ghiberti's arch rival, Filippo Brunelleschi.
Ghiberti may have beaten out Brunelleschi for the design of the baptistry doors, but Brunelleschi managed to get his revenge. And in doing that, he achieved the greatest feat of engineering of his age.
The building of the cathedral was going well, except for one big problem. No one could figure out how to build the immense dome that now dominates the Florence skyline. There the cathedral sat in 1418, work at a halt and domeless.
Brunelleschi and Ghiberti were jointly appointed master architects of the dome. But there was one big difference between them. Brunelleschi had a plan, and Ghiberti didn't. Brunelleschi wanted the job all for himself, so he called in sick. He pretended to be ill, which left the job to Ghiberti, who before long was completely lost. Then, miraculously, Brunelleschi recovered and returned to the job. Here's the problem he faced. The area that had to be covered with a dome was 180 feet wide and 180 feet high. In those days, the way you made a dome was you filled the entire space with scaffolding. In fact, they just restored the dome, and that's how they did it. They're just removing the last of the scaffolding now. But in Brunelleschi's time, wood was extremely expensive, and the city fathers couldn't afford all that scaffolding. Brunelleschi's plan didn't need it. Instead, he invented some unique machines so secret that he made sure nobody ever saw the designs.
Luckily, sketches of Brunelleschi's machines were made later by, of all people, the grandson of his losing rival. They reveal a grasp of mechanics usually associated with Leonardo da Vinci, who worked over 50 years later. Brunelleschi invented hoists, cranes, and machines to position the stones in the dome, as well as a unique design for the dome itself, consisting of an inner and an outer shell. One of his cleverest machines was the huge hoist that hauled the stones 180 feet up to the masons working in the dome above. Recently, this machine has been brought to life in a computer. It's a short walk across Florence from the cathedral to a museum most of the city's tourists overlook, the Museum of the History of Science. The museum is involved in an ambitious plan to recreate in the computer working models of Brunelleschi's machines. Here's the hoist.
Quando questo è in alto gira nell'alto.
And in the computer reconstruction, you can see what made it so clever.
Adesso gira così e adesso gira così.
It's reversible.
Let me see. When it's up, it goes in this direction. And when it's down, it goes in the other direction. Like that. Ah. And the horse goes in one direction only.
Without this reversible gear, the horse would have had to be unharnessed and turned around between loads. It was the first time anyone had built such a machine.
Prima volta che
c'è
hanno fatto questo.
un'invenzione di questo genere, sì.
Brunelleschi wasn't the only 15th century Italian designing machines, although most of them stayed on the drawing board. This human-powered pile driver by Francesco Di Giorgio has also now been built in the computer and is today driving piles for the first time. This water-powered saw, designed by an engineer named Tacola, also seems to work just fine. Di Giorgio designed a water pump. He also went in for high-tech weapons, like this missile launcher. A mechanical ladder for scaling walls. Even a nasty device for stopping enemy ships. Machines like these, even if only imagined, were very much a part of the spirit of innovation that characterized the Renaissance. Thanks to Brunelleschi's machines, the citizens of Florence saw his magnificent dome slowly materialize between 1420 and 1470, and Florence's crown jewel was complete.
È tutto per questa edizione della Scientific American Frontiers. Arrivederci, ci vediamo prossimamente.
Presentation of Scientific American Frontiers is made possible by a grant from GTE Corporation. At GTE, it's amazing what we can do together.